Yo, so today I'm going to be breaking down a full sounding emotional guitar melody for someone like Iann Dior and then throwing some drums on it at the end. Alright, so the sound we started off with is the double track 6 strings B from Omnisphere. This is just my favorite guitar and I use it in pretty much all my guitar loops, and it's pretty much the most realistic guitar that I found from a VST. And then here's the MIDI for it, and overall it's really simple, and it's pretty much just this one chord which the top notes repeat for the rest of the melody, and then the bass notes change. So if I want to go ahead and make something similar, I would pick a bass note. So I'm just going to go with B, and then just make a little repetition like that. And then just copy that over, and then we have to go ahead and figure out the top. So I know with B, F sharp and A sharp sound really good with that, so I'm just going to go with that. And then we just have to copy that over. But then we have this little dead space here, so I'm just going to fill it in with another F sharp. And then we can just copy that over, and then change this A sharp to a G sharp. And then for the last thing, just duplicate the bass notes down just to make it seem a little bit more full and deep. And then last thing, you just copy it over, adjust the bass note, copy the whole thing over again, and then adjust these bass notes as well. And then in the original MIDI, I ended up pitching it down to C minor, so it sounds like this. And then for the effects on that, I threw Guitar Rig on the Almost Clean preset, Reverb with the Wet and Decay turned up just a little bit, Magic Switch turned all the way down pretty much, a Dr. Phase, which is a free phasing plugin, an EQ to kind of cut out of the highs and boost the low mids, an EQ just to cut the lows, and then an imager just to make it feel nice and wide. And then after those effects, I ended up rendering it out twice, so one of the versions is panned completely to the left, and it's also perfectly quantized on the grid, and then the other one is panned completely the opposite way, which is also unquantized, so they kind of bounce off of each other and make it feel super wide. So after all those effects and rendering it out twice, here's what it sounds like. So overall, like the difference in timing and panning just makes it feel really cool. And I did end up putting some additional effects on that. So I have this EQ to kind of cut out of the low mids and then cut out of the highs and boost the normal mids. And then also another one just to cut the lows. And then a pancake just to make that panning a little bit more interesting. And then on the right one, I have those same EQs, and then I just flipped around the pancake so it's the opposite way. And then for the next sound, it's another guitar from Omnisphere. It's the baritone guitar A. It's a really nice like low accent guitar, so I threw it in as a low accent guitar. And then here's the MIDI for this, and I just went ahead and clicked this in by ear, but it's a super simple pattern and you just kind of got to play around until you get the notes right. But then after I had that MIDI, I ended up routing it through the same mixer chain with the guitar rig and everything, and then I ended up doing the pitch bends that I also did in the last video. So if I go ahead and click on this, you want to change the mode to stretch, change the pitch range to 1, and then automate this pitch knob here. And then you can mess around with the pitch and make it kind of a little bit more glidey. And I mentioned this in the last video as well, but when you're working with the pitch, you really want to make sure to type in the value as 0.5, and you want to do that on whatever sections you want not detuned or sweeping in a certain direction. So overall, just another really simple accent melody, and here's what it sounds like. And then for the next sound, it's a one-shot called Whistle, and I got this off of a Travis Scott one-shot kit from Reddit. Overall, it's just a really nice like high accent sound. And then here's the MIDI for this, and again, I just kind of clicked this in by ear, but I will mention that like in the last guitar video I did, I still like to use these longer slide notes, so it's really subtle and it glides very slowly. Overall, I think it just meshes with the guitar sound really nice and kind of makes it feel a little bit more ambient. And then for the effects on that, I just have reverb again with the decay and the wet knob turned up, an EQ to boost the highs, an EQ to just cut the lows, and then another imager just to make it feel really nice and wide. So after those effects and making the MIDI, here's what it sounds like. So that's just a really nice accent melody that again just kind of combines nicely with the guitar. And then for the next sound, it's a pluck called Up Uppity from one of Sunboy's one-shot kits. I believe it's from the Psycho kit, but all of his kits are really good, so you should definitely go check them out. And then here's the MIDI for this. So basically this just copies the root note of the first chord being G, as you can see here. And usually when I do these melodies, I would want to layer them with the claps. So like right there and right there. But I wanted this to be like more of like a pop kind of melody, I guess. So I layered it where a pop clap would be. So overall, I just kind of switched it up just a little bit. And I think it turned out all right as like a little accent melody. So here's what it sounds like. Alright, and then for the next sound, it's a pad from Horizon called Astra. The guys over at Horizon sent me this over a couple weeks ago, and I've been messing around with it, and overall it's just a really good plugin. And I think it's a little bit more affordable than Serum, but it also comes with way better stock presets in my opinion. So you should definitely go check it out if you're interested in a new plugin. And then here's the MIDI for that, so it basically just copies the notes from the arpeggiated chords, but they're played as like together as chords and not broken up. So it's super simple and it just kind of sits in the back. And then I went ahead and rendered that out, but before I did, I threw some effects on it. So I have the Rhythmic Octaves Portal preset, and I turned the wet slider way down. And then I have this shaper box with this filter preset, and then this volume preset. But on both of them, I have the mix super low, so it's super subtle and really doesn't impact the sound that much. And then after I rendered it out, the only really noteworthy other effect I put on it was gross beat on the tremolo preset, and this is automated. And then for the other automation clip on that, I just have another channel pitch, and like I explained earlier, you can just go ahead and change the mode to stretch, change the pitch range to 1, and then automate that. So after all those effects and rendering it out and everything, here's what it sounds like. And then for the final melody in this, I have the Wing Upright Mono Dark piano, just one of my favorite pianos from Keyscape. This, the Wing Upright Tremolo, and Dark Indie are just 3 great pianos for kind of reverse or just high accent melodies in general. So, and then here's the MIDI for it, and it's super simple. So this bottom part just copies that pluck in like the pop clap positions. And then the top part of it just copies the slide whistle that I added earlier. And then I went ahead and added some effects to this. So I've tape cassette with the wow and flutter turned up, fruity delay just on the default preset turned way down, portal on the crystalline accent preset, halftime just on the 1 bar preset, and then an EQ just to kind of filter it out and make it sound really nice. And then even after those effects, I added a gross beat that's just on the half beat gate, and this just kind of fades in and out on an automation clip. So after all those effects and rendering it out and reversing it, here's what it sounds like. And then for the bass patterns in this melody, I actually used 2 basses. So one of them is just a normal boo bass, just an acoustic bass stock with FL Studio. And then the other one is a B4 bass from the Stardust Serum Bank. This is becoming one of my favorite basses. I've used it in a bunch of videos. But the one change I did make is clicked on the sub, changed it to this, and then lowered the volume. I also put it down an octave. So it just kind of gives it a little bit of a more aggressive feel. So for the boo bass MIDI, of course, it just copies the bass notes, but it does this little pattern here that just kind of repeats throughout the thing. And I thought it was a little bit more interesting than just doing a 2-step. And then for the B4 bass, it just copies those same notes, but it's just straight notes with no chops. And then when you end up combining them, it just kind of sounds really nice and they fit really well together. So here's what it sounds like. And then for the effects on the acoustic bass, I just cut out this little high section because it was kind of clicking. Another EQ to kind of boost the low mids. And then this EQ gets automated for when the drums want to come in, so there isn't any low end interference with the 808. And then for the Serum bass, I just kind of cut out all highs and just have it being a sub bass, and it just kind of sits in the back and fills up that kind of low end. All right, so those are all the main sounds in the melody, but I did kind of add 2 more accent things at the end. So the first one being a guitar effects thing that I made, and then a drum and texture thing that I made that will be in my upcoming one-shot kit. It'll be very exciting when that comes out because I think it's going to be pretty cool. But they end up sounding like this when they're together. So So just super simple, and they just kind of sit in the background and give the melody a little bit more texture. And then the second thing I added was actually a vocal loop that I made. So I went ahead and tried to sing out the best I could what was in this whistle pattern here. So how I did that is I went ahead to the mixer, I went and grabbed this, set this to 1 so I could record into it, threw pitcher on there, which is just auto tune, sung it out to the best of my abilities, then added all of these effects. So I have a compressor just on the default preset, a little alter boy with the formant turned a little bit up and the pitch turned up, a ambience just to make it feel super ambient, a EQ to kind of cut out all the bad stuff, another EQ to kind of boost the good stuff, a gross beat again that's automated on the 1/2 beat gate, and then an imager just to make it feel nice and wide. So I'm not too good at vocal chops right now, but when I get better at them, I do plan to make a full tutorial about how to make good ones. But this one is kind of decent, I guess, but here's what it sounds like. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the melody. I think the vocal loop came out pretty so-so, but I did like adding it anyways because I want to get better at them. But then once everything's combined, it ends up sounding like this. Alright, so that's going to be pretty much it for the video. I like where I'm going with this like 2 808 things, but I really want to mess around with it afterwards. It's just like too time consuming to throw in a video. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Also, thank you guys for 5,000 subscribers. It's a cool milestone. It's very cool. Thank you guys. But yeah, that's going to be pretty much it. Have a fantastic rest of your night. I'm going to go play some Farming Simulator 2022 while this uploads for me to edit. But yeah.